We also got Quentin Beckham in the house. Today, he got the generosity of Woody and is walking home with a Buffalo Trace bottle.
Yeah, I will be walking down the street with a bottle of bourbon yet again.
There you
in
go.
Charlottesville. Yeah.
Keith and I have already enjoyed that little perk. Keith, how are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling good. As Woody walked into the studio, I was, you know that whole the Muffin Man thing. He's the bourbon man. He shows up with bourbon. So
I was really nervous about where you were going with that.
Yeah. You were nervous.
But that is not the reason we love Woody. We love Woody because he's an all-around nice guy and he has a lot to say when it comes to real estate. This show will start in about 10 seconds. Judah Wickhauer is our director. My friend, we are in your hands. Guys, welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. My name is Jerry Miller. It's a good Wednesday morning to you. Thank you kindly for joining us. We have a Charlottesville, Central Virginia, Commonwealth, country, and worldwide audience at our disposal on Real Talk with Keith Smith on the I Love Seville Network. Today, presented by Keller Williams Alliance and powered by Ross Mortgage and Fincham and Associates. Judah Wickhauer, you're the director, my friend. If you can go to the studio camera and let's welcome a panel of pundits, a cast of characters. Keith Smith, Woody Fincham, and Quentin Beckham. My friends, good morning to you. I hope you guys are doing quite well.
Cast the characters. I got pundits.
Panel of pundits.
Panel of pundits.
I'm really excited because, we're, as realtors, often blamed for being responsible for what anything costs. And instead, we get to pass that mantle and let it be Woody today.
Oh, wow.
Nothing new there, nothing new
The
there.
cost of real estate
Nothing new
falls
here to
on the
see.
shoulders of the appraiser.
And I know that's a sentence he loves hearing.
As long as no one's throwing fruit at me, I'm okay.
Woody, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody watching the show?
Woody Fincham, founder and president of Fincham and Associates. We're a residential valuation firm that's also transitioning over into doing some commercial work as well. And we've been here many, many years and love the Charlottesville area and just happy to be here.
How many years?
Well, many, many years. I mean, about a decade now.
That's many, many years.
Yeah.
So talk about this going into, this is new. That's the first time I heard you were dabbling in the commercial. How's that going for you?
So life, it's just a career goal that I set about 15 years ago that I'm just now starting to try to do with everything else in my life. And I've just got some classes to finish up, but I've been working with, I'll mention Heather Placer out of the Richmond market. She's a MAI that I've known for many years. She's a good friend, and she's been nice enough to work on a lot of assignments with me to help me get my experience hours up. We do a lot of property that stands on the edge of being commercial because we do a lot of large estate acreage. They'll have going concerns on them, like farms and wineries and things like that. So it's just a credential that I need to put under the hat.
There you go. Mr. Beckham, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. I'm also kind of interested, I know how much work it takes to get a real estate license and then how much more work there is after that to be good as a real estate agent. What does it take to be an appraiser? What kind of process is that? And how long before they say, okay, you're okay, and they cut you loose?
So it's different with each state, but the basic federal requirement, and Virginia follows that very closely. There's several licensure levels, and I won't bore you with all of them, but to become a residential appraiser, it's approximately 1,500 hours of experience that you have to have under another certified residential or certified general appraiser, certified general being commercial appraiser. And then you have to have 200 hours of classroom time, and it takes a couple of years to do. To get your certified general, again, commercial level, that's about 3,000 hours, and you have to have 300 hours, and it's actual classroom time. So it's in addition to your undergraduate degree as well.
So this isn't something that you just do casually. You have to make a choice and really commit and go through some process
yeah,
there.
definitely. And we're getting hit up big time right now to mentor trainees. That's what we call folks coming into the business. Sort of an old mercantile apprenticeship kind of deal. It's a little antiquated in my opinion, but long story short, what the market's doing as well as they've been doing, everybody's trying to get in. I know a lot of people are trying to get into the agent side too, and that's creating a lot of competition. But with the appraisal side, there's not many appraisers out there that will actually take on trainees because you ultimately are training your competition
Yeah.
because no one stays.
How does that work? How do they persuade you to do that? That's also on home inspectors. I got a friend who's launching a home inspection business, and he's doing ride-alongs with various home inspectors to get the foundation for the profession. And he's like, my competitors are training me, and some of them aren't too welcoming to that.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to do. I mean, we want to have more new appraisers coming into the field because the median age is well over 50. I mean, I'm 45 and I'm young to be an appraiser still, which says a lot about the state of where the profession may be in a few years. We've got a lot of folks getting ready to retire out. But if we don't bring new folks in, then there won't be appraisers here in 10 years. So we're trying to figure out how to get around that.
So Jerry, in the run-up, you said you had a couple of questions already. I have a few because I want to get some lessons from the legends in our O-shift continuation discussion. But if you want to read a couple of questions, or I'll jump off with
Well, the first one, and this is from a regular listener of the program, Grayson, wants to talk about the connection with what appraisers are doing and how real estate values are increasing exponentially quickly. It's a good question.
It's a big question. I mean, really, it comes down. We said this last time I was on. It's really all about market analysis. A good appraisal firm understands how to do a granular market analysis, and that means knowing what the market's doing on a day-to-day basis. I mean, when we run our metrics for each report that we write, we're literally looking at what is the day-to-day change in the markets and how are we going to apply that over time. What's really difficult right now is we're not in a linear appreciation. The market's done this. It's a hockey stick effect. And the last, 6 months, even 12 months is a lot different than the preceding 6 or 12 months than that. So you have to look at it from multiple ways and take a couple different slices at it when you're doing it.
So we've been talking about this. Everybody understands what appreciation is, right? It's when your home goes up. Everybody understands what depreciation is when it goes down, aka the time of great unpleasantness.
Right.
But I look at the market right now as more of a deceleration kind of
Right.
thing. Are you seeing that out there where instead of having double-digit increases in certain period of time, are they more back to somewhat what I would call normal? And what would you call a normal appreciation year over year, percentage-wise?
That's a really good question because we don't know what the new normal is really going to look like yet. I mean, in a stable market, we're always at the 3 to 6 month period, but we're a long ways from being there still. I mean, we are starting to see an increase in days on market, and we're also starting to see some price adjustments as well. I think folks are being a little reactive to what they think is going to happen in the market. So we're seeing some listings that are starting to reprice themselves every several days, and they're dropping them for a price improvement and to attract more folks in to look at the property.
That's interesting. As real estate agents, when we go in to work for a listing, we always want to price ahead of the market as much as we can. To be in front of it diminishes days on market, gets you more competition, better offers, and that has become such a much more complicated prediction now.
Oh, yeah.
Our crystal balls don't seem to keep up with as quickly as things are changing. And I'm wondering if it feels the same way on the appraiser side.
So it's a little different for us because what we're doing is these two terms really get mixed up between agents and appraisers: market value versus market price. Market price is what something sells for. That's what all the parties agree to, and that's what it closes at. Market value is a concept that has to basically be supported with mostly retrospective data. So when we're looking at value, we're looking at it as of the day that we see it, which is called the effective date. And that effective date, we're not allowed to forecast out into the future for mortgage use appraisals. They want to know what it's worth right now, and sometimes that's going to be different than where the agents and all the parties to the transaction have agreed to be, because again, you're looking at data that's mostly supported by retrospective data, but a good appraiser is also looking at the market analysis to see is there any pent-up demand? Is there any reason why this property may be have a premium to it that other properties don't? It can be very complex.
That's interesting because I think of how much more work that is for you. When we price a house and we get a contract for that price, we're right. That's our proof. Like, see, I told you. And
Yes.
You getting there has to be a lot harder.
It can be. It can cause some interesting interactions with folks where, they've priced it very high, maybe even beyond what we can support for market value. And in that situation, we often will hear from the agents that, well, market value is always what people are willing to pay for it. Well, Not necessarily the case. I mean, if you look at shows, this isn't real estate, but like Antiques Roadshow, the appraisers there will give you what they think something should sell for, like a piece of art or furniture or whatever. And then oftentimes when those things end up at auction, they sell for a whole lot more because they're using the same methodology that we use. They're basing it on what similar things have sold for in the market, and sometimes the market taste is going to outpace what the market's been doing.
So I did a quick analysis on Monday. In the last 90 days, like I do these 1 week snapshots. In the last week, ending on the 27th, we had 76 price changes in the MLS. 30 days ago, we had 12. And
these are price reductions.
These are price reductions,
Yeah.
or price reductions.
They're not going to go up in price after they've been listed.
90 days ago, they were increases. The 12 were actually increases. The 76 were decreases. So if you take a look at the delta, so price matters, right? In what we're doing, price matters. I don't care what market you're in, it always matters. And kind of one of the questions I wanted to ask you, two lessons from the legends. There's maybe a lot of real estate agents that are listening to this that maybe not have been through this kind of shift we're going in right now. How can we help coach people establishing new market value? Maybe if Quentin wants to kick off or whatever. So
Sure.
what tools, what can we do to help? Because we don't want to get in, we want to price it right because we want you to come in and say, yeah, this is right, right? So what tools can we do? How can you help us get there?
That's an interesting question. I don't have a starter for that.
Well, I think one of the things lately that has sort of been given, I laugh at when I see, because I'm a realtor member of the local association. I don't sell real estate. Nor
We
do
all
I.
sit at the same board table together.
We do. But I'm just an appraiser. I don't do any sales at all. And I get all the emails that go out through our association, just like you guys do. And we're not looking at decreased pricing as a term anymore. We're looking at price improvement. And I think a lot of that is how you kind of couch it. And it's all about, how are you going to market what you're bringing to the table, I think, and helping people make good decisions. Because that's the big question, I think, right now is if you buy, are you putting yourself in a position where the market may be normalizing or even decreasing to a degree where you're going to lose some equity? And I think that's the biggest question that a lot of consumers are asking right now, at least what I'm seeing anyway.
But do you see that, in your professional opinion, right? Because we get asked this question all the time, right? Did I just miss it? Is it too late to buy? Is it too late to get in? And I'm going to get into an analysis in a minute that I did this morning at a home at Lake Monticello for sale versus rent on that end of it. But, we get asked that question all the time. Is it too late to buy? Did I just miss it? My PhD anesthesiologist, doctor, son-in-law goes, oh, we missed the market. And I don't think so. And how would you answer that question?
Well, I mean, if you need to buy a home, and buying a home is always, I think, better than being a tenant. With the way the rents are outpacing everything else right now, I mean, it is the highest appreciation of all the real estate categories we talk about. You're better off having equity in a home. And even if, I don't think the market's going to have any major correction anytime soon as far as going down. Again, I think, like you're saying, it's decelerating and we don't really know what the new normal is going to be. But in the end, I think you're better off as an owner than as a tenant because you can't control what's going on. And so much of corporate America owns single-family stock right now. And that's really pricing a lot of normal people out of the market, unfortunately.
Well, Michael Buchensky, Michael Guthrie, welcome to the program. Michael Guthrie, I'll get to these comments here in a matter of moments. Michael Buchensky said last week that a $20 million deal he was facilitating with financing was essentially a hedge fund or private equity buying an entire Waynesboro neighborhood.
Right.
So we had
He literally said that on this show.
Absolutely. So I just read an article this morning. Congress targets investors and asks, where are all the houses gone? So that Congress is actually looking at that very, very topic. I read it quickly this morning on Inman. Jerry?
Michael Guthrie, we'll get to his comments here. The market has been shifting quietly for the last 2 months, not just price adjustments, but also look at the back-on markets that should be highlighted on this talk show. So houses coming back on the market he would like us to highlight.
Well, the same analysis week over week, he's 100% correct. 30 days ago, there was, for that same week snapshot, there were 6 that came on market that week from the 20th of June to the 27th, 26th. So 20 more came back on market.
And this comment has come in. Ask Woody how he characterizes today's market and what's coming. Does he feel pain is coming?
I think we're good for the next year. Beyond that, my crystal ball is a little cloudy.
I've got one here if you want one. I got a really clear one right behind
Some
you.
days I could really use it.
Me too.
I mean, we're really shooting in the dark when we get beyond that. But I mean, there's no economic indicators right now that make me have any great pause as far as the market going horribly wrong. Will the market decelerate? Yes, it's definitely going to decelerate. But I don't know. This summer, we're still doing pretty well. I mean, if you stack up where we're at now versus historically over the last year-over-year change, or even going back 4, 5, 6 years, we're still right on pace with everything where we've been at otherwise. So I don't see any great indicators right now that would make me fret.
How about Kevin Yancey's comment? Explain how an appraiser says my 6-year-old home has X and Y worth X, Y, and Z, but if, say, a water line busts, the insurance says X and Y are worth X, Y, Z due to depreciation.
Insurable value is a different concept completely than market value. I'm an expert in market value. We do we come in sometimes as a firm and we'll be asked to give an opinion of insurable value, but insurable value is all about replacement of things, and we're looking more at what contributory value from a consumer perspective would be when we're doing market value. So they're two completely different things. And insurance companies always, I hate to use the word manipulate, but they're always trying to make it work in their favor as far as what they have to pay out when they're.
I think that's called
I
manipulation.
think manipulation is the right word right there. I think
Manipulation's
well
right.
done. I agree with you, Woody.
Yeah.
Fred Ritter giving him props. Al Torres giving Woody some props right here. Amanda Spagoni dropping some props for Quentin Beckham. Same with, is Michael your nephew? I feel like I know
That
Michael.
is my nephew. Yeah,
Michael Beckham, I feel like I know you.
Yeah.
And Burrows giving QB some love as well. Gentlemen, Woody, is your waiting list of clients, how deep is it? How long out are you calendar-wise for getting jobs done?
Well, it depends on the client. With a VA, they give us 10 business days, so they always get priority. We love taking care of our veterans.
Thank you.
Because they've taken care of us. As far as private equity work, we do a lot of high net worth estate work. I mean, those can take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes longer depending on what it is. Normal mortgage work, normal everyday middle class property, we're looking probably at 3 to 4 weeks. Other firms they do have shorter turn times right now, but they're also mostly focused on just doing that everyday, townhouse, condo, and single family in the middle class market kind of stuff. We're more of a specialty firm, so some of our turn times can be a little longer.
Jump in, Quentin. Nope. Good dinner last night?
Dinner was really good last
Dinner
night.
was really
No, I was just thinking, I read about real estate constantly, and I try to follow things a lot. We were talking about investors, and it's interesting because there's good arguments on both sides. Mm-hmm. There's the argument that capital and investors are causing a problem, and then there's an argument that there's such a small slice that they are not causing a problem. Mm-hmm. And I've seen really good data that when you read it, sounds like it's true. Addition to that, first quarter of last year, only about 14% of mortgage initiations were first-time home buyers versus first quarter this year where that's 25%. And so we are still seeing a good portion of the home sales be for first-time home buyers. And so I think all of
You
this.
say 1 in 4?
1 in 4.
Well,
That's good data.
It's excellent. It's excellent data, and I'm just trying to read through this article, which I read through earlier. I just think the House is going to take a look at everything that we just outlined on. I just read through it quickly. They're going to try to be looking at how to do zoning, and it focus on what Neil Williamson is always focusing on is more as.
Yeah, but should the federal government be in jurisdictional zoning,
Well,
local zoning? I mean,
You
the last
can't-
thing, you're talking to a libertarian here.
yeah,
The last thing I want is the government involved in more stuff.
I totally because this.
Woody's got a smirk over there. I see he's got something to add over here
Well,
on this topic.
Real estate's local. I mean,
Right.
when you're trying to normalize something at the federal level, they always mean well, but there's so many unintended consequences to
Right.
the market when they get involved.
So
And frankly, even our local folks can't seem to get it right.
Sure.
So,
Right.
So,
Thank you, Quentin. And he's friends with many of those local folks who are trying to
I'm
get
not
it
saying
right.
I'm not saying they're not trying.
I know.
The more we talk about the market this time around, the more, like he's saying, all of the factors that are affecting your ability to purchase a home right now and what you can sell it for have nothing to do with real estate.
24% the cost of a new construction is red tape, to Quentin's point.
That it's red tape, it's inflation, interest rates because of inflation, it's wage growth that is behind inflation.
Limited
These
development area.
These are things that have nothing to do with the house you're sitting in and the lot you're looking at.
Exactly.
They're all tangential items. So if we do see any sort of decrease, as we're seeing the deceleration, it really has a lot less to do with the house you're sitting in today than it does everything else that's going on around it and the inability of us to create more faster.
So
Well said.
it's definitely decelerating, but is it really decelerating? So, obviously, we can't give details on transactions on the show, but Yona and I had a listing, Urban Ring. I'll be as generic as I can be, maybe a little genetic too.
Is that coffee?
That may or may not be coffee.
We call that cough syrup on the set.
That's right, we call it cough syrup. But, we had multiple, it was under $400,000 in the urban ring, single-family detached, need a little bit of love, right? Instead of having 1,000 or 1,200 or 12 offers, we had 3.
Which is great.
Acceleration, we had an acceleration clause, and I haven't seen this in a while, had a appreciation clause in it that appraisal clause, whatever it appraises, they'll pay it over. So are we really decelerating, or is it just less? I don't know.
But is that a unicorn house? Is that a unicorn listing without getting specific?
No, we'd have to define a unicorn. I think it was priced right because pricing matters based on the location, based on the amount of work that it needed to get done into it on the end of it. But we had multiple offers on it. It wasn't a ton of multiple offers, it was just a couple. So instead of being 11 people being disappointed, there's only 1 or 2 people being disappointed.
Comments coming in fast and furious. Woody Fincham, a popular man in these Central Virginia circles. Delvin's, and Michael's got a follow-up. Michael, why don't we go to your follow-up, and then I'll get to your comment, Delvin C. Key, who's watching the program. This is from Michael. Solds for the first 6 months of 2022 are all 58 homes from the first 6 months of 2021. What was the expectation that you thought 2022 was going to have roughly 2/3 less inventory sold?
Yeah, about a third.
About a third?
About a third.
Yeah.
On that end of it. But we talked about that at the end of last year. My prediction for this year would be less volume as far as units go. The sales prices, I think, are still going to appreciate, but not at double digits. No.
Delvin C.K., Woody, how far do you travel to appraise? You're getting props from, is Lori the beautiful better half?
She is. She's the
She's
glue
giving
that
you some
holds
love.
my world together. So Devin's one of my oldest friends from high school. We go all over Central Virginia, but for estate level property, we handle the entire Commonwealth. I was in Leesburg 2 weeks ago. I don't go a lot to Southwest Virginia because there's that type of real estate there. There's just not a lot of it. But growing up in Hampton Roads, we do a lot of oceanfront property over the course of a year or two. So we'll go just about anywhere where the type of property will support the kind of fees we have to charge to go there.
Where'd you go to high school?
Oscar Smith High School.
Oscar Smith in the house right here, 757 in the house with Woody Fincham. Keith Smith, let's talk some of the data Michael Guthrie's putting on the feed here. He'd like us to go down that road.
Sure.
About solds in 2022.
Can I ask a quick question real quick? Because
Sure.
when we're talking absolute numbers, it's you don't get much perspective with it. So he said off 58 out of how many total transactions in a year?
That's a Quentin Keith question
Yeah,
right
and
there.
that's
you need
Keith-
your MLS.
I need
yeah.
my MLS in
Well, my
in
point
front of-
being is, what is that percentage-wise?
Well, ask Michael. He's in front of the MLS right
Yeah.
now.
So I actually, and I just didn't bring it with me. Everybody gives me a hard time for all these papers, but I've actually got spreadsheets, and I did it for a show where I compared first, year to date versus year to date on that end of it, and did it for new construction. But I don't want to misquote a number
Sure.
without having it in front of me. But it's off for sure. The volume the volume is off. Can I pivot just a
Yeah,
little
please,
bit?
please.
For Michael, Michael Brzezinski, if he's still listening.
Michael Buczynski.
Buczynski, I got it. I was close. Not everybody's name's Smith. I actually did a quick rundown. There's a home that just came into market at Lake Monticello for $279,900. If he can run some numbers, quick numbers for me, at whatever the current mortgage rate is with a 3% down, what's the PITI on that? Because just to put it in perspective, I just looked on my phone before we came in. To rent a home at Lake Monticello at that same size is about $1,800.
$2,000 a month.
It's at the minimum is $800, roughly about that. So the point I'm trying to make is it's still a good time to buy, even at 5%.
It's always a good time to buy.
Always a good time to buy.
It's always a good time to buy, especially in this area with rents appreciating the way they are. What scares you about the back half of 2022, Woody? If there's anything that scares you, what is it that puts fear into you?
I think we're good. Well, we're a very strong market because there's still inventory is just so low, and there's so many folks still buying. I think we're good through the end of the summer into the fall. I think really where the litmus test is going to be is where are we going to be at that last quarter of the year. It's traditionally always a slower part of the year, but my crystal ball, again, being cloudy right now, I don't really know. And I think if we're going to start seeing any transitioning, that's probably where it will really begin. If we see it at any level. But again, I'm just kind of throwing darts at a dartboard right now.
So Quentin, are you seeing this more? Are you seeing the market coming? You and I were talking about this morning on our walk. More back to the normal? Is it trying to, like, the normal summer slow down? Or?
You know, I almost think we have to stop using the word normal, because we're moving from one really dramatic
New normal.
separate time into another really dramatic, unusual time. And you know, I think what I'm predicting we will see in the last 5 to 6 months of the year is that a lot of the cash that people have socked away from pandemic-style living is going to get used up. You're seeing a lot of credit card balances grow across the nation.
Yep.
And there is not an end in sight to inflation. And so, you know, we say this all the time. If you're out in the market to buy a house, the best time to buy a house is yesterday. And we say that to be comical and also true, but it is also true. Mm-hmm. Everything that's going to make this house more expensive is going to make your cost of living go up, whether you own a house or not. And having the house today can lock it in better. I don't see any real relief for inflationary issues. Gas is down a little bit. We did have mortgage rates drop 14 basis points.
China's opening up, quarantine-wise.
China's opening up, so we can hope that helps some of this as well. But there's so many things going on at once. It's going to take some time for them to unravel. And no matter what we do, we're facing an issue of inventory. That inventory issue, even if everything else works out, is still going to be there. One of the things I think Michael was alluding to when he was talking earlier is we're not seeing huge drops in volume of sales. The total dollar amount we're selling in the area has come down, but not by a lot. We're seeing a bigger drop in the number of transactions, higher median home price, more concentrated money in single transactions and fewer sides.
So that's interesting, because that same snapshot, and I give, hopefully Judah can put them up on screen, that same snapshot. So this is the car footprint, right? And I just have it set up a 7-day. I look at it every day for 7 days. So the week ending the 27th, there was 100 units sold. 3 months ago, there was 26. Now, it's a leading indicator, right? Because these were stuff that was in the pipeline 30, 60 days, maybe 90 days prior to that. But just a quick snapshot, that's not showing the volume of sales going down. That's showing, over 3 months, 75 more sales.
What about seasonality, though? Because I mean,
That's
this
the
is
question I was trying to ask.
This is the busier part of the year for us usually.
We've also seen a lot of sales, a lot of houses have come back on market, and a lot of sales got pushed when people adjust to the price hikes for mortgage rates. And so you might have had a family go under contract on a house that was just within their budget. Mm-hmm. It took too long, the rate wasn't locked, the rate went up, they couldn't afford it anymore, and those went back on market. And so I think you're seeing things push forward a little bit as people take this pause for what are we going to do until the next time the Feds meet. And so I don't know that if you look on the long run, you're really seeing an increase. You're seeing them shift from 1 month to the next.
And on that note, we'll give a plug to Scott Morris of Ross Mortgage for his lock and shop program that he offers his clients. Are you seeing, have you had any clients with rates go up on them get out of a transaction because they couldn't afford it?
No. We we have not had that happen, right? Generally, before we get them under contract, we pretty much got it all.
The lock and shop is in.
We're locked in and ready to go. But I do have a question for Woody. Are you doing more or less refis? Are you seeing that process change a little bit?
They've dropped big time, haven't they?
It's definitely dropped. I mean, folks will continue doing refis when they need to put a kid through school or start a business or something like that. It's still better than using, a credit line like a credit card because the rates are so high. But the new normal there is definitely no refis. I mean, I've got colleagues all across the country that are telling me that they are virtually dead because they unfortunately modeled their business after just chasing mortgage work and didn't diversify their client base because the last 5 years have been remarkably busy for all appraisers, but the refi business is definitely down, and that's across the country for sure.
What about ARM? When you look at to do an appraisal, do you know what the loan product is typically?
We do
Are you seeing
most of the
ARMs going
time
up?
because usually that goes into the contract information. However, if it shifts from what was originally put in the contract versus sometimes I'll change the mortgage product is what I'm trying to say. But we are seeing ARMs being written into the contracts, not at a high percentage right now, but they are definitely where we were seeing none. We're seeing some.
Were you seeing the 10s, the 10-year arm?
Honestly, I haven't gotten that granular with it. I sort of look at it as more like data noise right now than anything else.
Does if a homeowner goes with a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, is an appraisal needed
Sometimes.
for that? Yeah.
It depends
But not
on-
every time, right?
Right. Like I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of high net worth borrowers, and they use HELOCs for all kinds of things. And if they've got a really big estate that's complex, if they're sitting on 100 acres, they can't do a drive-by appraisal on it. You have to go onto site. So they are, in those situations, are usually going to do an appraisal, depending on the amount of the HELOC and things of that nature.
So, Quentin, are you starting to see the tempo pick up in your shop a little bit in the offices? Meaning the tempo of phone calls. And the reason I asked that question, I chair the land trust, right? And we have one unit out, and pretty much the last 2 weeks I got 0 phone calls, and it feels, and all of a sudden,
Price point?
Well, I think this shock of going from 3 to 6 is starting to settle in a little bit more. I can tell you in the last 24 hours, I've had 12 phone calls from agents. Tell me about this product, right? Because that's usually how it starts, because they need done. But it was like crickets for like weeks, and then all of a sudden, in the last 24 hours, we've been getting a lot of phone calls.
I don't know that I've seen it have any great swings or roller coastering, but on the overall trend line is going down in terms of people searching Google, finding us, clicking, getting a phone number, and actually making the phone call. And so we're seeing a lot of internet activity on the sites that we market on for people just sort of checking out neighborhoods and what did the house down the street sell for and what is my house worth today. But those actually flipping over to somebody that's making a phone call to reach out to a professional to ask questions, that number has gone down.
It seems like our phone call tempo has changed, and I can't quite figure out why.
I think it's because you're hosting Real Talk with Keith Smith.
Well,
Cameron Palmer, welcome to the program.
that could be.
Ours has actually been going up. We're getting more consumers rather, calling us, getting ready to put on the market. And they're like, well, we want to get an appraisal because we want to know what the real market value is.
So talk about that. So tell us how that process goes.
So, folks will they're interested in doing something. Of course, a lot of this is involved with handling estates where, parents have passed away or something of that nature. And the kids want to put it on, but they need to do their diligence to take care of the estate. So they hire appraisers, and that's normal. Recently, maybe the last quarter, I don't track the numbers, but we've definitely had an uptick in how many of those consumers are calling us. And we're dealing with a couple of buyers right now that are actually getting ready to put a contract on property, and they've hired us to do essentially like a pre-listing appraisal. They want to know, what is this worth and what should I offer on it?
How do you feel about that, Quentin?
I think it'd be interesting to have the conversation of the difference between assessments, appraisals, and a market analysis. And
what the house actually sells
and how
for.
they are not the same thing.
They are not.
They are,
I think you need to open up that bottle to have that
it's,
And you should throw Zestimate in there, too.
For sure.
no, I'm not going to.
You're not a fan of the Zestimate.
Oh, we get hit over the head with a Zestimate almost on every deal we do that doesn't support contract.
And how do you explain that away?
It's a talking point.
It's a black box algorithm that I have no way of understanding how they get to where they are with it. And all props to what they do at Zillow. Their market analytics are on point.
Yeah.
But their estimates get thrown off by a lot of noise. I mean, a couple years ago, you'd see single families where they were using condos as comps. Now they hide all that. You don't know really what they're using as comps or what they do use or don't use. But if you're in a very homogeneous market, it's pretty reliable. But when you get out into the county or even Lake Monticello is such a bunch of different property types, it can really be thrown off. I mean, we've seen them off 10, 15%, and that's a lot of money.
And I think particularly in real estate, it's true that there's white lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics.
Sure.
And you can line up 3 houses that are otherwise identical, and based on deferred maintenance and who owns a vacuum cleaner and who owns a lawnmower,
right,
those house values are very, very different. And those are things that, when we start talking to somebody about their house value and they want us to tell them about the neighborhood, we can give them generics.
Right.
But narrowing down that bandwidth to what their particular house works requires a visit. I think you're saying the same thing with a lot of the appraisals that
Yes.
you're doing. And I hope consumers understand that assessments and your tax assessment to your house value, they have almost no relation whatsoever. And the appraisal versus the market analysis that realtors do are 2 sort of sideline ways to determine on where is the middle and make our best guess based on our experience.
Assessments that's actually what brought me to Albemarle, was that I was the deputy assessor here for the county.
I didn't know that.
Yep. I spent a year and a half there and then went on to a job at the state. But assessment is hard to deal with because it is statistics. That's all it is. And what they're doing is they do what's called a sales price ratio, and they try to adjust the neighborhoods based on how the sales prices have changed from year to year. In Albemarle, they have a staff that's appraising somewhere around 45,000 parcels every year, and they use basically the sales ratio method for almost everything, and they use old data. So by the time your new assessment year comes in on July 1st, they could be using data that's 12 or even 18 months old. So when you're in
Which is an eternity.
Yeah, it is. I mean, with a market that's changing daily. So if you're in an appreciating market, you're usually under-assessed. If you're in a depreciating market, you're paying more on your taxes than you probably think that you should, but it's legally based on that sales ratio study.
Comments coming in here for Woody. Timothy S. Evans, watching the program. The oldest baby boomer, Timothy says, is now 76 years old. The real estate market will be big, if not huge, for the next 15 years. Denise Cluis giving you some props as well. Nicholas Erpy, hello. You want to touch that?
Absolutely. I was just listening to a stat yesterday that I believe within the next 5 years, the largest block of millennial buyers are going to be coming in. They're going to be hitting that price, that age where they're going to be buying. But I want to go back to this assessment thing. We've covered this on the show a couple of 1,000 times, right? This is just really part of a budgetary process, right? There's really, it's part of that. They'll do a basic analysis of it on it, but it's not what the market is telling. It's just one of the 3 sides of a triangle, right? Because they got to have the property assessment, they got to have the budget, and then they set the tax rate because they got to be at zero. Maybe you disagree with that philosophy. I mean, in a perfect world, you want your market value to be here and your tax assessed to be there, right? That's in a perfect world. But any agree, disagree?
So the way it's supposed to work, and I can say from my experience with Albemarle, this is how it worked there. The county managers or supervisors rather, leave the assessment department alone to do what they need to do. Legally, they are supposed to do market value. The most important thing with real estate assessment or tax assessment is equity. If you can mistreat a property, but you have to mistreat it equally with all the other properties in the universe that it exists within, right? So they look at equity first and then market value second. And for the most part, I think Albemarle is left alone to kind of do what they're supposed to do. Now, on the converse, it's up to the supervisors to set their tax rate. Now, if the assessments are going down, of course, if they need more money in the budget, then at that point they're supposed to raise the tax rate. I'm not aware of their.
What happens when assessments go up 12%? on average across the jurisdiction, and then the real estate tax rate is raised at the same time?
I think we all know the answer to that
Okay, because
question.
that's what just happened. Do we want to talk about that?
And a little bit of inflation thrown in there. Just
At the same time, personal property taxes went up 25%.
That's the real story. That's the real story, and because there is really, what is it, just Kelley Blue Book or whatever it is, there's really no rationale or process to establish in value. In Fluvanna County, our home county, my 2017 Tacoma truck was tax assessed more than when I bought it
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah, I said some
That's just
unmentionable
crazy.
words on air that when I got my tax bill this year. It seems almost against common sense, but I understand what's going on with it. Luckily, the real estate tax rate didn't change.
In Fluvanna.
Yeah, well, Fluvanna, yeah.
Right. In
It's interesting you bring up cars. I just had a friend that they sold a large Suburban of theirs for twice what they paid for it 8 years ago.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
And another one that sold a Volvo sedan.
Did they buy a new car?
For more? No, they just decided they didn't need it anymore. Because between
Since when did cars become like?
they got their personal property tax bill, and more jobs have moved remote and at home, and they looked at their overall life and they're like, yeah, we don't need this.
Sure.
And they got rid of it.
Yona's trying to do that with my boat. You don't use the boat. Get rid of the damn thing.
You know, there might be a boat for bike kind of thing. You could,
Ah, there you go.
just saying, you might have some leverage
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. So he's negotiating for me. So we'll get this. We'll get this.
Sorry, Yona.
We'll get this. We'll get this out there. Mr. Beckham and his cohorts took me out on a 28-mile ride on Sunday, and to say my legs are still a little sore would be an
How'd your bike hold up?
The bike did good. I'm not so sure
The bike looked kind of exhausted at the end of it. It was a little tired.
I think you're mixing me up with the.
I think he's being kind.
I think he's being kind.
Joel
You
Baker.
did just fine.
Hello. Welcome to the program, Joel Baker.
You were kind enough to wait for me. That
you
was
did
nice.
just, we wait for everybody. You just thought it was about you.
How about Kevin Higgins?
okay.
Kevin Higgins for Woody specifically. Driving 64 to Richmond past Zion's Crossroads or driving west past Waynesboro. Woody, what do you think is the next target or boom area?
Personally, if I were going to make a decision to head in either direction, I would go west. I think it's the market's just a little kinder to consumers right now, but that whole market area between Zion's and Western Henrico, we're seeing a lot of activity there too. It really depends on your lifestyle and where you need to be. I mean, in either case, you're looking at bedroom communities, and I guess it really is going to depend on where you're commuting to, or if you even have to commute anymore. Like my son and his wife, they just sold their Waynesboro home and decided they're moving to Mosley, which is between Blackstone and Richmond. They're going that direction. The reason is my son wants to be a little closer to a more diversified ethnic food area. He's a bit of a foodie, so he wants to, when he wants pho, he wants to go get good pho, and he wants to get his Korean barbecue. And
Like
all
your
that.
son.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Just when you say that, I'm astonished. You don't appear old enough to have a son with a
He's a
wife that
grandfather.
yeah, I know. I just don't.
Yeah, the
He's
second,
aging
I
well.
don't picture that with you.
second grandbaby will be here in September. Well, if not sooner.
Congratulations. There's a rash of those going around.
Apparently, yeah, because we've got a third coming. I'm trying to keep up with Mr. Beckham. He's got 3. Michael Guthrie's got, I think, a whole brood of them.
Oh, wow.
Quite a few.
Yeah, but I was getting grandbabies before everybody was forced to stay home.
What does that mean? You're old? Is that what that means?
No, I'm going to
What does
leave
that
that one
mean?
alone.
I'm just saying that, when there's good programming on television, there's fewer grandbabies.
Apparently, my daughter's not watching. My daughter, what he's saying is my daughter and son-in-law are not watching enough Real Talk with Keith Smith. That's apparently what's going on.
Your daughter watches all the time.
She
from
does
Seattle.
actually. She does actually. Yeah, and I get.
She corrects you.
She is a teacher, and she says, use better words. Use your words. I think that's what she says.
Nicholas says he can appreciate wanting to be near a very good food scene. Nicholas Erpy, the recently and newly minted married man, just said that.
But we did a whole show on Friday about the Seaville food scene and the fun about that. And,
I don't know that we meant to.
yeah.
Of course, I was late, but
Well, it got better once you showed up, that's for sure. Smith was dragging us down a little bit. So I almost don't want to bring this up, but this has been really bothering me, and I just want to kind of get this out. So Free Enterprise Forum, Neil Williamson, I know he's not watching, he's in the middle of a meeting, but I actually been reading his stuff about what the city's doing on its new comprehensive plan. And this new zoning diagnostic approach, where they're actually going to be putting or trying to talk about this first right of refusal, and it really bothers me. And just maybe not the right show for this, and we got to bring some other folks on it. But that actually kept me up last night. That they're actually put the words first right of refusal in a preliminary document.
Well, you should set the stage a little bit more.
Yeah. So
Jurisdiction owning property. That's what you're talking about.
no, that's not what that's written.
That's not what you're talking about.
No, so that's, hold on a second, I did not shut off my hearing aids. So what the language is very simple here. It says support the city right to refusal to purchase for sale properties, support the city's first right to refusal for individual, if a local property owner is selling a unit that are affordable but unrestricted, which is the important word, this is direct quote, the city or its designee could have the right to acquire those units at fair market value.
So we're talking about the city owning property.
The city buying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But it's more than that, right? It's the city saying that if and this is tied into, if you're going to be selling a home in Charlottesville that somebody considers affordable, according to this language, which I don't think this is remotely legal, you've got to give the city first right of refusal before you sell it to Quinton.
That is absurd.
That's
and
an
ridiculous.
odd way to use police power. I mean,
Well, I don't think it passes muster I spoke to Neil about this, passes muster on the legal side of it. I think my concern is they're spending time putting something in there that's really not feasible on that. Now, if Woody puts something in, like, because I work out in Seattle and in Portland, if Woody going to put in affordable housing and the city of Portland is giving you $50,000 tax break, then the city should get first right of refusal if you sell it prior to some
I don't think the city
period.
should own anything, be in the landlord game whatsoever.
Well, the terminology is designee, so it would designate somebody
It's
like
a
a land.
So what, a nonprofit?
No, it'll probably do a land bank.
It's a different concept, but I mean, look at what happened when we had all these large organizations in the late 80s with all this real estate owned property. They didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
And I don't know that a municipality, nothing against the city of Charlottesville at all, but I mean, they've got so many other irons in the fire they have to
Well, it's not
manage.
their core mission.
No, it's not.
They
And-
can't keep staff. How are they going to maintain property?
Well, it's been bothering me. I think I needed to throw it out there, and now I feel better that I threw it out there. For what it's
I think
worth.
it just gets confusing because, we have the map that everybody likes to point to their neighborhood and get up in arms about. And so then you talk to folks about the map and they say, well, the map's not really the thing. It's the zoning stuff that we're working on over here. And you talk to them about the zoning and they say, well, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but look at this comprehensive plan. Then you have another conversation about the comprehensive plan. And I don't know how an average citizen that has an average life and works a full-time job has the time to figure out
Right.
how to navigate all of this.
Yeah.
And I think what Neil's point was, and what I read, although it's a really vague memory at this moment, not that I don't love Neil and try to pay attention to him, was there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors going on with the consultants who are not local, who are highlighting things that are in some of the sort of courtesy notice on the intention of zoning that just are never going to work and are window dressing when we really need to be focusing on the window.
Exactly.
So this is all about my mustache. So I've got a little excited. I know.
He's got a bet with
I got
Neil
a bet with Neil
on the future land use map.
The zoning.
Yeah, the upzoning.
Yeah. So my point is they seem to be. I don't know if this is something they threw in there just to throw a document in there and do it, but this has been a lot of conversation amongst the professionals that I'm talking to about. Well, hold it, time out. Why is that even there? Is it even possible? And we're not focusing on getting the missing middle tackled, some of the other stuff. So I'm on a bit of a soapbox on it, and I'm actually probably breaking one of my own ruals. So.
If you
You're pointing
if you
fingers.
lose the bet, you have to
I'm
shave the
pointing
mustache.
fingers. I'm going to call
You're
my.
breaking one of your three rules.
I'm gonna, Mr. Beckham. I have to have a little bit of a confession here. I am breaking one of my three rules.
I know you are.
Jason Howard.
Do I look
But it's my
surprised?
show,
Do I look
so-
surprised?
Jason
No, you don't
Howard's
look good. It's my show, nah,
beer distro business. When I sold beer, a right of first refusal meant if a brand like Stone Brewing Company built into its contract when selling its distribution rights to a distributor, at some time in the future, that distributor wanted to sell those rights to a second distributor, Stone had the right to buy them back by beating the offer. How can the city claim rights to something it never owned in the first place?
Yeah, that's the point. I think the only way you can connect it is if there's some sort of
Affordability, incentive.
Correct. So
Yeah.
if they were, look, we all agree that local jurisdictions shouldn't own. I sit on the Regional Housing Partnership, and we're trying to put together a land bank, which is a whole separate animal there. But if Woody's receiving an incentive of some sort, right, then he should. Then there's some rules that have to go along with that. So we have in the land trust, we have first right of refusal to the beer comment. So if one of the buyers wish to sell it, we have the right to purchase it.
Yes, but that first right of refusal exists prior to and with the knowledge of the person purchasing it.
And it's at market value, right?
Well, yes, no, actually. So there's a pricing formula. I don't want to get into it. It's a little
Okay.
bit complicated to explain it over there. But yes, there's a predetermined price, and we have the right to do that, and we have 7 days to do it if you don't. But that's a typical contractual relationship kind of thing. You would have to enter into some sort of contract between Woody and the city at some point in order to do that. So
Well, it's essentially not allowing free market to happen. I mean,
Right.
government stepping in and saying, hey, well, we're gonna do this, and you guys are gonna throw something at me for bringing this up. But if they're really interested in
I broke the rule already, Woody, so.
getting into affordable housing or whatever you want to call it now, Aspen and Breck and places like that have started implementing rent control programs so that they can actually keep service-oriented people inside the city limits instead of having to drive an hour and a half
Yeah.
from a more affordable area. I mean, I don't know, is that something that we need to start looking at? If the government really wants to get involved with it, is that not a more effective way of doing it than trying to prevent someone from having free market options?
So I grew up in rent control areas. I'm not a particularly huge fan of that. But the flip side to that would be like what we did at the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. We gave out about $2 million during the pandemic for rent assistance, right? So that would be the path, that there's some sort of rent assistance that you can receive it. But, we've been talking about bubbles on the show forever. This bubble that's building is not sale property, it's the rental side.
Yeah.
I think that bubble is just going to blow, is just going to keep on expanding.
What do you think, Woody? You agree?
I mean, you have all these companies that are moving their money from the market and putting it into the dirt, basically. They're buying existing housing stock to do it. I mean, at some point, there's got to be a diminished return to it, but when and what? I mean, maybe I'm just to counter your point, maybe it's not going to happen. I mean, is home ownership going to become a diminishing thing in our culture because of how much Wall Street and these
Well,
big
you're
companies
saying
got
only
into
for
it?
the elite, only for the wealthy?
Well, I
That's
think
where they're
that's why
heading.
Congress is looking at,
Right.
maybe looking at that. Again, not taking a dive into the letter, the article, excuse me. Quentin's thinking. I can see it.
Yeah, I think, we're talking about government being involved in real estate and free market, and I think we're missing the fact that government is all over real estate and has been for forever. And they're involved both directly and indirectly with housing, with what a house costs, with where it is, with how close it is, and what does the transportation look like. And so we're talking about free market stuff, and there is a lot of free in our real estate market. And to say that government shouldn't be involved is fine about the specific items we're talking about, but government is just all over the housing market.
Too much so, I think, to a certain degree.
At the local as well as the state and federal level. And so I don't think it does us, I think we do ourselves a disservice to behave as though they just have to go away. I think there are things there that either because of history or because of necessity, they need to be involved in.
Sure.
Maybe not, the community councils that worked out so well in the past for Albemarle, but there are ways in which they can have positive effects, and we say this over and over and over, there's not going to be such a thing as affordable housing unless government does get involved. We can talk about housing affordability,
But this is a different beast, though. I mean, you're talking about things that have always been an indirect problem, or what's the word I'm looking for? They're interloping in an indirect way with a lot of what you're talking about. When you first write a refusal, that's a direct interlope.
Yeah, but
I can't see
That's
that.
a bit of a red herring
I would
because,
agree with
because
that.
the point of saying
Sure.
it was that it was never going to happen. And
That's
if
the
government
point.
really does want something, they would do it through eminent domain. And in our local past, we've never been really good at deciding this property isn't being used well, we're going to rearrange how it's used and it's going to be a big improvement. That's never been something we've
Yeah,
been
there's a
great at.
building not too far from here that's kind of like that.
$65,000 a year in taxes the man is paying for the Dewberry Hotel.
This is a
and he's
recurring theme.
active on his taxes.
so that's a
and
recurring
They can do nothing about it. Michael Buchensky, watching the program, has got multiple comments coming in.
Hey, Mr. B.
Buchensky is a good guy. He makes the program better often.
Coach B.
He says, I think the hedge funds will continue buying up whole neighborhoods in this area and turning them into rentals. He highlighted on a previous show that he's financing a $20 million project where a hedge fund is buying a neighborhood in Waynesboro. He says big government wants its citizens to be dependent on them, so government owning and making rentals the new form fits the narrative. He also says there's a big issue in response time locally. In Augusta County, for example, you can get someone on the phone immediately, but with the city of Charlottesville, it takes weeks. And he says, hi, buddy, to quit.
So Mike B, did you get a chance to run some numbers on that 279.9 buy? I'm just curious what that PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is on that versus an $1,800 a month rent. I'm just curious what the delta is on that, if there is any.
Run that by him again.
So there's a house in Lake Monticello, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 279.9, just came on the market, 3% down, whatever the going rate is right now. What's the PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance? That same home is about the cheapest rent I've seen on apartments.com and a couple other places, about $1,800, somewhere between $1,800 and $2,000 on the end of it. So I'm just curious. I think people are panicking. That's I think part of why the phone calls are picking up on the land trust and this entry level. I think the shift has kind of changed a little bit about thinking of the interest rates, and I'm just curious what that comes out. I did some math quickly on a pen.
The media is hammering the rates on every platform. It's everywhere.
And the point I'm trying to bring that up is that is it really that
look at
bad?
this platform. We're talking rates,
all the time.
Your wife says it's completely, Woody's wife, the fabulous Lori Fincham, watching the program, it's completely unfair for consumers who need to rent but cannot afford to do it. There's a lot of unfair out there, man. And rents are obscenely through the roof. The first-time home buyers having as difficult time as ever buying a house. And we're trying to be empathetic for everyone that's out there. But the root of the cause is there's no inventory. And there's so much regulation that's limiting the inventory coming. And when Supervisor McKeel, who I have a lot of respect for, comes on the show and says, I'm not going to vote to expand the development area. We're not using the 5% development area at all right now. There's no way I'm going to vote to expand it. It shows me the inventory is not going to improve anytime soon. Malik's not going to do it.
Yeah.
Jim Andrews ain't going to do it.
Well, I think since when she was on the show,
Steve Harvey would do it.
yeah,
But he's got a force in front of him in this election in November of next year.
So I think a lot of education has changed since the time on that. I'm not so sure that that's as absolute as it is today as it was several months ago when we did. I've had a bunch of one-on-one meetings with these folks that do that. So I think, is it on the table today? Probably not, but it's being thought about a little differently at this particular point in time.
You have arguably, if you want to talk about that, you have one of the most important Board of Supervisor elections in maybe Albemarle history coming up. 3 spots up for grabs a year from November.
So it's an interesting. I disagree with that a little bit, and I don't disagree with the fact that all elections matter. All elections are important.
Half the board is up for re-election.
But
Half.
So let's assume, for the sake of a talk show, it changes a certain way. Any project that would come in won't get approved and done
Years.
during that.
But if
cycle.
the half doesn't switch, you're 4 years back even further behind.
Yeah, you're 4 years no matter
Yeah.
what on that end of it.
You want to touch on that?
I think that the argument that we're not using the development land we've got is a dead argument and not a valid one. I think the issue is speed, inventory, and affordability.
Yeah.
And saying, somebody didn't build off this 5% is just,
So let's just face it.
it's a little bit of a dodge.
So let's just call it what it is.
Since you broke the rules, I figured I could have a
Yeah,
turn.
no. I've totally screwed the rules thing. But to play off of what Woody was saying, why is, I didn't know this because I'm working with clients. Why is the other side of the mountain hopping? Why are people looking at it? Path of least resistance, right? The path.
He's talking developers.
The path of finding a piece of property, rezoning it, getting the site plan done, you're smiling, getting the site plan done and putting product in the ground is a fraction, a third, a quarter of the time than it would be in Albemarle County.
So Michael Buchensky watching the program. So when we highlight Buchensky watching, this guy's First Heritage Mortgage. He's in the game, just like these guys are. And he's on the financing side, so he sees a lot of stuff. To answer Keith's question, $1,700 principal and interest, add taxes and insurance, so you're looking at $2,100 a month.
Got it.
$2,100 a month.
So for about a couple $100 more of what you can rent, you can own.
Yeah,
But you're
and
building equity over time.
Yeah.
Building your wealth.
piggy bank.
Yeah.
And in a year, it won't go up 16%.
Right,
Exactly.
right. And he also says this is a bearish take.
Yeah,
This is a very bearish take.
I would not be surprised.
We are moving into a great stall. No inventory, high rates, and sellers wanting top dollar, and buyers thinking it's time to wait. Stagflation, baby. Get ready.
Yeah, so the one part of stagflation
Employment.
is missing. But you're right. So I've used deflation with deceleration. We could go into a stagnation and but people are still gonna buy and move on the end of it. I'm just curious if Mike B does ARMs, and if I was to buy that house with a 7 or a 10 ARM, what did that number look like on that end of it?
You're asking. You should ask him what's the rate drop.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if
I think the 10s are high 3s, aren't they, Michael? Or the 7 and 10 is it high? Well, he can tell us.
yeah, I think
I don't want to guess, especially with him watching, because
No,
I'll be wrong.
because he'll
and
correct it. Yeah.
He'll totally call me
What's the
out.
10 arm at, Michael, for the first 10 years before it resets?
That's a lot of pressure for somebody just watching a show.
I think he's watching at his desk. Are you working at the house today? I think he's watching at his Crozet estate right now.
Crozet Estate.
It's Crozet estate.
Estate.
My bigger question is, what kind of a retainer have you got him on?
No.
I mean, he makes the program so darn good.
Oh, yeah, very good.
He's typing. We see it coming in right now.
So while he's typing,
Fun.
if you lose the bet with Neil, you have to shave your mustache.
On set,
And if Neil loses, what does Neil have to do?
you buy him a bottle of booze.
There's not much left for Neil to shave.
Oh, actually, Neil is
I
shaving
mean, not
his-
that everybody would notice.
Neil said he's shaving his goatee.
He's got facial hair, a little bit more than a mustache.
Yeah, he's shaving the goat.
Yeah. So I'm at one point I
And
was.
Quinton's also, he weaved you into the bet as a Keller Williams team member, and he said if I lose the bet, Quinton's shaving his head on the show.
Yeah.
Because
He's
we're
not-
both Keller Williams Alliance
Yeah.
team.
No,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to move your microphone there. I'm
it's
just
fine.
joking.
No, but not a bad idea. No,
I'm used to you being exaggerative
I
while we're
know.
sitting here.
so I've
Try to
got
have some fun, Quinton.
I've got a bet with Neil. I can't remember the day. I think it's June 19th, but I may have it wrong, of 2023, that the city, I took the under, that the city will not have the new zoning ordinance in place by whatever this date was. He took that they will. And so actually I took the over, he took the under on that end of it. So I've got to shave, and if I had this mustache on since 1985, I've never not had this mustache.
Your kids haven't seen you without that
My
mustache.
children have never seen me without it.
So what are you hiding?
Well, there was this time.
So, Michael, math.
He's chiming in right now with the interest rate on the 10-year ARM for all the viewers and listeners on this program. Michael Buchensky, thank you kindly
So
for
while he's
chiming
doing
in.
that, does that make sense to you? Is that something to counsel your clients? The
I'm
client-
sorry, I was all thinking about shaving.
I know.
What are we
I
talking
know.
about?
By the way, we're doing that on set.
Jim Morrison giving Woody Fitchum some
So,
props right now. Should we get Woody into the bet somehow? The man's got some facial hair, and
I
it's
should have
pretty
waited.
darn good.
I should have waited to shave my beard off, shouldn't I?
Yeah, it's just trying to have a little bit of fun on the show and do all that kind of great stuff. And I won't tell the whole story about the mustache because I'm growing it from a bit of a downer reason on it. I grew it for a bit of a downer reason to celebrate some of my friends that didn't come home that I was in the Marine Corps with. But anyway, so that's the deal. I'm going to shave it off live on set if I lose.
Gotcha.
You'll look like an older Ron Burgundy, one of the viewers
Nice,
said
nice.
on the program right now. That's what you will
I'm
look
not,
like.
is that a compliment?
Stay classy, Charlottesville.
Stay classy, Charlotte.
So going back to the arm, I
don't
know,
know. I don't know.
going back to the arm,
It
I
could be
think in our area in particular,
Yeah.
you know, if we have somebody coming in on a contract that's a 5-year contract, a 7-year arm that saves them 1.25 could make perfect sense.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're leasing the house. Think of it like you lease a car. They're leasing the house. They're getting a fixed payment for their whole time here. They're building more equity. They're saving that point, knowing that in 5 years, they're either going to have to really settle in and buy something different or just sell it.
Well, so statistically, it used to be every 5 to 6 years.
It's
people
now
move.
10.
Now it's 8, somewhere 8 and 10. And so back to this lessons from the Legends end of it, you know, 2 months ago, 2 years ago, who the hell talked about arms? And now we're back in arms because we're trying to figure out how to help our clients.
And I will tell you that
Lori's opposed to the arm.
Yeah.
Your better half. He's offering her perspective. I like it.
Yeah,
Lori.
yeah.
I think a lot of us that
I'd
live
love
through
to
the
know
crash
why.
are opposed to arms.
Initially, I was.
Because of
Arms
the
are-
stigma associated with
Yeah,
arms from 08, 9, 10.
They're a strategic tool in the
Yeah.
right hands that work, but unfortunately, a lot of normal consumers don't understand finance. And an arm can be a detriment.
Devastating.
Yeah.
But we've been talking about this, you know, 1s, 3s, and 5s. Personally, I would count, you know, unless you really are planning to get in and out pretty quickly on a home. But 7 to 10, you know, the interest rates go up and down. You know, if you can pick up a 2-point spread.
Oh, this is good feedback. Arm rates are not, this is Michael. Arm rates are not any better in most cases versus 30-year.
Yeah.
The 30-year in high 5s, low 6s right now. Arms are very similar. Also, the Fed basically made the 5-year arm high-cost loans, so
Because-
5-year arms will be going away. The 7-year arm will be the new 5-year arm.
Yeah.
That's from Michael.
Yeah, so that's all kind of tied to the Fed rate and all that kind of great stuff. X, since we're on all this thing, and I'll throw this hand grenade out there, ask him what he thinks about the 40-year. Do you see any 40-year loans in your?
Are you asking Woody or are you asking the panel?
Everybody, whoever's listening.
I haven't noticed any, but I'm not shocked that we're heading in that direction because, I mean, look at what happened with car loans. I mean, what was the longest you could get? At one
yeah.
point, it was 60 months, right? Now we're getting
7
72.
years.
Yeah,
There's 7 years on the loans.
There's a
It's
7.
crazy.
There's a 72. There's an 80 month.
Yeah.
There's a 7-year car loan now.
Is it really?
Yeah, a 7-year car loan makes no sense to me, but I'm all for people getting vehicles at rates that they can afford.
It's interesting. It normally doesn't make sense, but my truck, I had a 5-year loan and I paid it off. You know, now it's worth double. I can turn around and not double, but
Yeah,
I can,
but you then have the problem that everybody else has in
They
real
need to buy a
estate.
new
What are you
one.
going to buy?
yeah.
You're going to be paying tooth and arm and leg for the new one.
No, I know exactly what I'm going to buy.
But Yona's not going to let you
The
buy
question
that.
is, Mrs. Smith
Yeah,
will
Yona's
not.
not going to let you buy that.
Me buying isn't the problem at all. It's
Yeah,
Mrs.
there's this
Smith.
whole theme of you wanting things and Jonas saying,
Yeah, I have
I've noticed
very.
that.
Is that a
very-
lifelong-
Yeah, I have very.
I think it's for Keith's best interest.
it is
that
literally.
That's happening.
I think it's for the best interest of the family.
Yeah.
You know,
you shouldn't worry about big government. I think that's just out of order for
It's
you.
out of order. I should not. worry
Yeah,
about
completely
it.
out of order.
I'll keep it local. How's that sound? You know, so what Michael B is saying that even the 7 to 10 arm isn't going to help that monthly.
No,
payment.
he's saying that the rate's the rate, and he's saying the 5's going away.
Yeah.
So if it's a similar product, then it puts
Why do it?
it puts a normal consumer who may not understand their financial tools at any level into a very risky position because then once the rate starts adjusting on them and they don't do anything, then they've really put their family in a bad position.
Well, this is why your lovely wife doesn't like it because she remembers the time of great unpleasantness, right?
Yes.
You know, where people were getting these interest only, and I think that's something that you're going to probably see rear its head again.
I hope not.
I think you will. I think
What, interest-only
I think-
loans?
I think you're going to see interest-only loans. I think you're going to see no doc loans start coming back.
Well, everything you're outlining, I hate to say this, my friend, is the recipe of 08, 09, and 10.
Except
There's equity in homes, and they're not utilizing them as piggy banks to get money out of them.
Woody's rules that Woody needs to play by now is very different than back then, right? It was a different game. It was, and that might be something great to talk about a little bit. So, what is different today the way you do business based on regulatory requirements versus 2004 and 5 or 6?
So we're watched very closely. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and hats off to Freddie. Danny Wiley up there is one of their chief appraisers, and Scott Reuter. I know both of those guys are great appraisers. But they've changed the way they monitor data. They are watching every appraisal that goes through their computer banks. That goes into their data set. They know exactly what's going on, and they're actually watching the appraisers. So appraisers are having to be. There's a separation, number one, from the loan originators and the appraisers now. There's a firewall between us. And so
It used to not be like that.
Yeah, there's no collusion going on at all now. And Fannie and Freddie, and FHA as well, VA as well, they've all got these electronic portals that everything goes into, and they know exactly what every appraiser is calling or codifying different properties and features in the properties, so they can really watch it. So appraisers are very cognizant of that, I think. And then you've got all these other, what we call assignment conditions. Those are things that the lenders add on to what would be the normal scope of work that we would do. Like Fannie has a minimum scope of work you have to do. If anybody's bored and wants to read their 1004 appraisal form, it's all pre-printed in there. But then we have all these additional overlays that come in, and they're all put in there to help manage the risk that's going into it and to make sure that appraisers are not just making wild guesses on things. I mean, we really are watched a lot closer than we've ever been watched. And
That's a good thing, in your opinion.
I think it's good to a point, as long as it doesn't. The problem is that the appraisers who aren't going to do their due diligence the way they're supposed to, they learn how to play the game. So there's always a way to back into these rules that they come up with, and again, good intentions, but sometimes there's mixed results with that too.
So, guys, we're wrapping up. You did a soft open at a restaurant the other day. Go back to the foodie thing. How was that?
I got to attend. It was good. It was Smyrna in the old Man Jones on Main space on West Main. And the food was excellent, especially for a soft open. You expect some kinks.
Yeah.
Service was good. They had good drinks. Really enjoyed it, and looking forward to going back.
Anything on the menu jump off at the
There's so much. What I found really interesting and I thought was smart was there's a lot of kebabs, there's yogurt dips with things mixed in, and a lot of interesting ethnic food, and a burger. And so if your other half or your group has somebody that's just like, no, I don't want it, there's a burger. And it was really good.
Whoa, how did that go? Do that again?
I think he wants you
No,
to
I
do
can't
the
do
noise
that.
again. I want you to do the noise again. It's in the old Mangiones on West Main. Did they change the interior?
Yes,
They did?
yes, and you should go see it.
Okay, we will check it out. Last comment from viewers and listeners from Michael, who made the show better.
Thank you,
In
Michael.
12 to 24 months, we will be in a recession and rates will likely drop. Between now and then, we will see odd load options to try to fill the void. For example, I have a 2-in-1 buy down where a seller or builder can pay to buy the client's rate down 2% in the first year, 1% in the second year, then going to the original market in the third year. So for example, a 6% rate today would be 4 in the first year, 5 in the second, and 6 on the third.
How much
And
is
moving
that,
forward.
How much does that cost, though?
I mean, it's going to cost something.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to buy down.
Speaking of government control, Lori said you cannot join the facial hair challenge. She's lowered the boom.
There's a reason I keep facial hair on my face.
I don't think that's governmental control. I think that's called something else.
I think that's called the boss.
That's
That's telling you
called
what to do. And we all have that. Keith Smith, Woody Fitcham, Quentin Beckham, Judah Wickhauer, Jerry Miller. Real Talk with Keith Smith, presented by Keller Williams Alliance, and today powered by Ross Mortgage and Fitcham and Associates. Gentlemen, you guys did a fantastic job.
So on Friday, there may or may not be festive 4th of July hats worn.
Oh,
just a little
okay.
just a little heads up. We're gonna talk about 4th of July and fun stuff and burgers and hot dogs and all that fun stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
4th of July show on Friday here with Real Talk with Keith
Mrs.
Smith.
Smith may join us. We'll see.
Yona Smith, possibly
May,
in the house.
May.
All shows archived on realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. The I Love Seville show is up in 1 hour. We'll see you then. Take care, everybody. Good job, Woody.
Thanks, guys.
Bravo. We got a quick picture here.
Thank you, gentlemen.